What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Optimize You, the podcast where we help you transform your health, fitness, nutrition, mindset, identity, and create that lasting change in your life. So hopefully you're doing well this week. We got another episode of Overcoming Myself. So this is that weekly 10, 15-minute episode that I bring you where I talk about my life, talk about what I'm going through. And I got a dense episode today. I got a lot of different stuff, and I'm going to get right into it. First off, though, when I talk about lasting change, I did just create another podcast called The Academy of Change. It's my new mission. It's my new company, and it's all geared around just transformation, becoming the best version of yourself, and really interviewing people who've made changes, looking into my own changes and figuring out how we can all be able to change big changes, small changes, habits, changing habits that don't serve you anymore, all of these different things. So make sure you go check that podcast out. It's going to be amazing if you haven't already tried it yet. So today I'm going to get into it right away. So with this, recently I had something happen in my life where I put in tons and tons of effort towards this thing, and just tons of preparation, tons of passion, all these different things. And I didn't get the results that I wanted to. And I was thinking about it right before I recorded. I was like, this would be a really good thing for me to talk about, because this relates so heavily to weight loss, fat loss, health goals, any goals that you're going after. And I caught myself, I was like, kind of this morning, I was like, fuck. Like I woke up at like 2 a.m. I couldn't get back to sleep. My mind was just racing, right? I was like, I put in so much effort. I put in so much towards this thing, and just, didn't really work out how I wanted to, right? At least yet. Right. It's still really early. It just didn't work out how I wanted to initially. I'd made this up in my mind of like how the results I was going to get, and it didn't match up. Right. It didn't match up. It's a little different. And I thought about that for a little while, and I was like, I put in a lot of effort, right? I felt amazing about my effort. I felt amazing about just everything I did about it. I felt amazing about every aspect of it. And I was like, how can I be mad? Right? How can I be mad? The big lesson with this is, and the big lesson I'm learning here as well, is that like we got to gauge ourselves on our effort with things, right? I think if you didn't get the results you wanted to, what I'm doing is I'm like, what lessons can I learn here? How can I make this better for the next time, right? Like the next time this situation comes up, how can I make this better? How can I make it a lot more of a chance I'm going to get the results that I want to get with it? So I think that is so huge. Like, what can you do better next time? Use everything as feedback. I don't view this as a failure. Right? I view this as feedback to get better and to grow, and another obstacle, right? Like another thing that I'm excited to solve, because in the past, this would have happened. I would have been like, God, I failed, right? I failed. This sucks, right? I'm gauging myself on the results. I'm putting my self-worth on the results, and I just feel frustrated. I feel demoralized. I feel shameful. And that would lead me towards all my vices, right? I talk about like food and like in the past, alcohol, drugs, all the different things that I've gone towards to help myself feel better in the moment. And so I'm super grateful that I'm not doing that, and that I'm using this as feedback, using this as a stepping stone to get better in my life. The second thing that I'm talking about today is I want you to understand this is something that I've been reflecting on a lot, and something this year has been a huge portion of my life, and somewhere I was always very scared to go. And it was digging into my past. And what I've figured out is just how important it is to be able to overcome yourself on a daily basis, a weekly basis, monthly, yearly, whatever you're going through. It's so important to get down to the root of these problems, root of these emotions that you're feeling, and really get deep. Continue to ask why, continue to peel back the layers. What I did is, and it can be very hard to do this, right? It's very uncomfortable to go back to some of these situations. I know all of us have these situations we're not proud of from our childhood, or from, maybe college or different portions of your life. You're just not proud of them. You're like, fuck, I wish I wouldn't have done that. Like, I feel super guilty for that. And you still feel guilty to this day. You still feel you're almost frozen in time in those feelings. And I had a lot of those. And what worked really well for me to like heal those situations and start to get into a better place and start to develop more tools to handle rough situations as well, is that I basically like I wrote out every one of these things. I was like, God, I feel terrible about this. I don't feel good about this thing. I hated how I reacted in this scenario. And I just kind of went through like almost these big portions in my life that I felt really guilty and shameful for. And I felt like I was a really bad person or selfish in these scenarios. And I dug into them, and I just kind of went into the root of why. I was like, why did I feel this way? Why did I do this? And for me, digging in to this allowed me, it's kind of funny, like a lot of this kind of comes back to what I'm going to talk about even a little bit later here, which is my need to be accepted. Like a lot of these things, what kept coming up for me was like validation, acceptance, fitting in. A lot of the stuff that I did that I wasn't proud of, the reason I did it is because I wanted to like morph into who I thought like these groups of people wanted me to be, right? I was like, oh, I want to fit in with these people. I want to be accepted. I want to make sure that I'm like, I look cool, right? All of these things. And so I was like, oh, that's interesting, right? Like you learn a little bit more about yourself. You be a little bit of aware. And then it's like, oh, so in that moment, what I needed was somebody to be like, you're great the way you are, right? You're perfect the exact way you are. Like you don't need to be accepted by anybody. You just need to accept yourself. Right? That's what I needed to hear there. And so then I can start to help myself overcome these struggles and heal from these past like traumas, so to speak. Because I always think of just traumas as anything in the past, like any triggering things, any like things that we've held on to, anything we've drawn like big conclusions from. That's what I think of as trauma. And so I also dug into recently, kind of on a same side of a coin, is I have like a need to be my best, to be the best, right? I have this need to be the best. I want to be the best in everything. And this like sometimes I probably wouldn't have talked about this too long ago. Like sometimes it went a little bit too far. So like this started in sports. Like I always wanted to be the best on the team, right? In the league, like whatever I had to do, I just wanted to be that best. And really when I dug down into it, it was just really another example of me striving for acceptance and praise and validation, right? Because when you're the best, then you get like, oh, great work, Alex. Like you're great job. Like amazing game, Alex. You know, like all these different things that you get. And even my parents as well, like awesome job. Like, gosh, you killed it today. Like you get validation and acceptance from everybody. And so I've kind of figured out recently just how big that is in my life or how big it has been in the past. And so the story of, I'm going to tell you a story here. So like my senior year, I've always strived to be the best. I was the Division II National Player of the Year my senior year in college baseball. And so I was technically the best, right? If you define that by an award, right? So I felt really good about that, right? Being the guy who wanted to be accepted, wanted to be validated, wanted to be praised. That was the highest level of praise for me. It was like, oh shit, like you won every National Player of the Year award. And guess what? Okay, it pumped my ego up, right? Like it pumped my ego, it juiced my ego. I felt better about like that thing. I felt better. I was getting the validation, the praise that I always wanted, right? It's like, oh, this is awesome. It's on a national level, right? Like everybody knows who I am. Like everybody's pumped, you know, everybody's like, oh, wow, you're really good. And that bumped up my ego, but it didn't make me feel any happier. It didn't make me feel like any, like have any more like self-worth or feel like more enough. Like all that stuff was to try to feel more enough, right? I was like, maybe I'll feel better about myself when I am that, and that people are praising me for this, but it really didn't happen. Right. And so like, that's one of the big things that I realized just through one of my scenarios of digging into my past and digging into some common patterns that have come up. And I was able to figure out, oh, wow, like, you know what? I didn't feel any better about myself when I had that. Like, it was just like almost a mask. It was almost like another vice. It was like, oh, if I try to be the best, then like maybe it's like money, right? Like so many people like, oh, when I have money though, like then I'll feel good, right? Then I'll be happy. Then I'll be fulfilled. And yet you have all these people in Hollywood, these people who are just like millionaires, billionaires who end up like killing themselves, right? It's terrible. It's terrible, but it goes to show, and this has been almost proved time and time again, that money does not buy happiness, right? It can make things a little bit easier for you, I think, but it's not going to make you any happier, any more fulfilled. And what I personally believe, the biggest things that'll make you more happy and make you more fulfilled is by digging into your past, digging into those situations that you're really uncomfortable going, these places that just really, they're like, oh man, like this sucks. It's like, it's so terrible to go there. Like that's how it is. But I'll tell you one thing is that every time you do it, it gets a little bit easier. And I just did it on a walk. That was what the be the best thing. I started peeling back the onion and I got down and I was like, oh my God, like that's crazy. Like this is a great thing for me to talk about on overcoming myself. And so hopefully today has been helpful for you to realize that you should be gauging yourself on your effort. That's not to say that we don't need to make adjustments, right? Like, cause sometimes effort just, if you're not getting the results time and time again, you got to fix something, right? Effort isn't enough. But if you are putting in the effort, you feel really good about it. Let's really pat yourself on the back. You did an awesome job, but how can we set ourselves up to get the results that we're looking for the next time, right? I think that's the big thing. Use everything as feedback. Don't think of things as failure. Think of things as feedback. And also something that I saw from Ed Milet's podcast. He had Jamie Kern-Lima, who's got a new book called Worthy coming out, which is something that I think is going to be a really, really good book. And she was talking about her like mantra that she's had around failure and rejection. I think hers was like, it was around rejection. It was like, rejection is God's protection, right? And whatever you believe, whatever higher power you believe in, I kind of have shifted it to like failure and rejection is God's protection. Or you could do failure and protection is the universe's protection, or whatever, you believe in, right? But this is a really good thing where it's like, okay, maybe like it's like a protection where it's like you're not ready for it, right? Like maybe you're not ready to have the success right now, the results right now. Like you need to still keep working and putting in the reps to get a little bit better. Or maybe like there's other things that you're supposed to go at, right? Like there's a lot of ways to look at this, but I think that if you can reframe it and you can like get away from like putting yourself down and getting frustrated at yourself, it's going to really push you forward in a good way. Use it as a stepping stone, like I'm using with this little situation in my life. So hopefully this episode has been good. If it was, please make sure you share it with a friend. You like, subscribe, you rate us. We really appreciate it because it really helps us get the message out. And that's what our whole goal is with this podcast, with our Tuesday, Thursday episodes that are released every week, is to impact people. Me and Matt, we love doing this. Like it's my favorite thing to do each week is to record these podcasts. Like I love doing it. I love getting on here and talking with you guys, sharing a little bit of insight into my life. And so if you do enjoy this, please make sure you share it with somebody you like, subscribe, all that stuff. Thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time to watch this or listen to this episode and to take the time to just watch and listen to our podcast every week. I hope you have a good rest of the day, a good rest of the week, and I'll be talking to you soon.